Hey guys, if you've been watching my videos, you may recall one I did a while ago called Frankenstein Tombstones, in which I went over two Tombstone radios that had been heavily modified. And this is one of them. It used to be a Philco 643 battery operated farm set, and a rather high-end one at that. It covered 4 bands and was really well made. Unfortunately, somebody had converted it to AC operation and it didn't work, and I couldn't make heads or tail out of what they had done, especially because they added some tube sockets to the set and they weren't populated, so I have no idea what type of tubes may have even gone in there. Plus, I didn't like the idea of having a modified set anyways, and they really modified this set even to go so far as to replace all of the tube sockets. So originally this was a mix of early 4 and 5 pin tubes, and for the most part they've all been removed and replaced with sockets with different pin configurations. So I had it in my mind to convert this back to a battery set, even though it'd be a ton of work. So I already started to do some work on it. I removed the power transformer and some of the other parts underneath, and I located some original Philco sockets of the right type, and I was going to take these out, put the right sockets back in, redo all the wiring, and that left a couple major challenges. One of which was to locate missing transformers. There should be an audio output transformer here that drives the speaker, and there should be an interstage audio transformer here. Tracking those down would be a pain, and also the speaker. It did come with a field coil speaker, but battery operated sets didn't use field coil speakers. They used an early type of permanent magnet speaker, because you can't waste all that power from a battery to power a field coil, which is really an electromagnet. Just to run the speaker, you drain the batteries far too quickly. Well, my quest has been going on for quite a while. This is actually the third vintage radio that I ever got. The first being this Philco 3710 console, and the second being Philco 3810 bullet set, which is kind of hidden back there. And this is the third one. I got it a few years back, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And I didn't know a whole lot about Philcos back then. I saw it on eBay, and I really wanted a Tombstone radio. I was familiar with the style, but not all the particular variations in the model numbers. Well, this one was fairly inexpensive and nobody else bid on it, so I was really happy to get it when I first got it, not realizing what I had really gotten myself into. Since then I did do an attempt at refinishing it, but not a very good job because I didn't know about toner lacquers back then, and I just used stain. This should be much darker. There should be extra dark walnut pigment lacquer. But anyways, I just left this on the shelf for the past few years, just kind of in the back of my mind. Well, out of the blue, a few weeks ago somebody sent me an email telling me that somebody was selling a Philco 643 chassis on eBay, and I think the opening bid was like $7 or something like that. So of course I placed a bid on it and kept my fingers crossed. Now I was quite surprised that in the end about 5 other people bid on it, and a bit of a bidding war ensued. But when I considered how much labor and effort it would take to ever get this set working again at more than offset the money I spent on the chassis that's in here, I hope. I have not opened this box yet. To compound this, well, I did win the auction, and I promptly paid the seller, and I waited and waited. eBay gives a pretty generous estimate on the shipping date, so I just went by that, and I figured, well, there's a holiday mixed in there, so I'll just be patient. but it didn't arrive. And so I finally contacted the seller a couple days ago and said, have you shipped it yet? And they said, oh yeah, we shipped it the day after you won the auction. You should have gotten it 2.5 weeks ago. And they had paid extra to have it tracked with the post office. And we looked up the number and it showed, yeah, it was 2 days after I bought it. They claim it was delivered at my address at 8 a.m. Of course, that never happened. So I got worried that maybe they just left it on the front porch and somebody stole it. And I have had boxes be stolen before off my front porch. And I've asked the post office to never leave packages unattended. So I kept my fingers crossed and I went over to the post office, and luckily, yes, it was actually at the post office. They have no explanation for why it was marked as the delivery confirmed when it never actually was delivered. I don't care. I'm just happy that I finally got it. So I'm going to grab a knife and let's cut this open. Oh, and as far as the other bidders on eBay, I can't imagine that there are 5 or 6 other people looking for this particular chassis. Yeah, it's one of the rarer tombstones, but it's not that rare. Plus, battery sets usually aren't that popular. My best guess is that it does have 2 Type 30 tubes in it, and those are somewhat valuable, but not like a Type 45 or anything. But maybe somebody was hoping to buy it and just flip it and sell off the tubes individually and make a profit. I don't know. Now, this eBay seller was very, very nice, and they were very concerned that I didn't receive the package and so on. And I just opened it and found that she'd left me a nice little handwritten note and an envelope, and inside of it is actually the tube chart and some other labels. So I don't know what happened to the cabinet that this came from. I mentioned to her that I had a cabinet that needed a chassis, but she didn't offer any info on what might have happened to it. This is cool because mine came with a label that was kind of disintegrating, and I do have parts of it, but it was nowhere good as a condition as this one is. So I will take very good care of this and hopefully reapply it to the inside of the cabinet so that you can see the tube lineup. It's got a Type 19 audio output tube, which is something I've never encountered before. And there's a Type 30, a Type 32, a Type 34. Optionally, a Type 1C1 ballast tube. You use that depending on what type of batteries you hook this up to. Another Type 34, Type 1C6, and there's the last Type 30. This AC modified set came with pretty much all 6 C6 and 6 D6 tubes, 1 Type 80 tube, and I have no idea what they used for the output tubes because those are missing. So what I'm hoping is that this chassis is in good condition, and if I need any parts, hopefully I've got them on the chassis that's currently in this cabinet. Alright, let's put the camera down while I get the rest of this wrapping off. She did a real nice job packing this. She actually built little custom cardboard shields around each of the tubes so they wouldn't get damaged. Oh, it looks like this might have the ballast heads. Yeah, I think that's what this is. That's cool. Don't know that I'll need the ballast. Now, in case you're wondering why I would want a battery operated set, well, one, I always like to restore everything to the original condition as much as possible. And for running it, I will either build a battery eliminator or maybe contact battery maker to make me a set. I saw in one of his videos he made a really sweet looking Philco battery of the type that this radio would have used. Yes, indeed, this is a ballast tube. That's basically a resistive wire element surrounded by an inert gas so it doesn't burn out. I believe you would either use this or remove it and put a hard wire jumper across it, depending on the type of battery you used for the A circuit, which is the tube filaments. Hopefully YouTube or battery maker can shed some light on that subject. I've examined the chassis and it looks to be in really, really good condition. A little bit of surface rust, but otherwise it's all complete. Oh, I suppose one tube shield's missing here. It came with this circular one, but really it should be a square shield like this. But I have spares, so that's not a problem. And here's the modified one. And you can see, I think, they did some pretty extensive modifications. So here are the two big audio transformers that I was talking about that would be probably really hard to find, and they're completely missing from this set. And where there's a filter cap on this set, they put an octal tube socket, and as I said, they modify these other sockets here. The tuning mechanism is pretty well seized up. If I put some pressure on the plates themselves, I can kind of get it to move, but it's really stiff. And it's cracked. But you can get reproductions of these, plus I can just use this one. It's not cracked. A little bit more faded, but it's certainly not cracked. This is an odd mechanism. It does have kind of a planetary drive with ball bearings down here, but there's also this weird hoop. It's kind of hard to see with the tuning dial in place, but there's a metal hoop down in there that rides on a kind of a spring tension system thing down in there. And I took this apart and I got it all cleaned up and greased and put it back together, and it never quite worked right. So even though I took some reference photos, I was never quite sure I got it back the right way. Because what'll happen is it's nice and smooth, but it sticks. Well, you'll turn this and the dial just won't move. So I will study this very, very carefully and take lots of photos before I dare do anything with it, because I already seem to have messed up one a little bit. I don't want to do it again. Now, as for underneath, let's see. Well, it looks nice and clean. And quite a bit different than this guy. So, somebody spent a lot of time and effort to modify this for AC operation, because, well, look down here. There's basically nothing in the original. And look at all the stuff down here. Got a box capacitor, we got some giant film caps, we got some power resistors. Up here we got maybe a filter choke, an electrolytic capacitor hanging here, some more caps up here. None of that stuff is on the original. That is one advantage of DC operation. You don't need those filter caps. It's nice, clean DC power. So there are no electrolytics under here, and what caps are here are quite small. Also seems apparent that some of the caps on here, like up on this Bakelite block, these are repairs. So I imagine there were two caps inside of this Bakelite block that went bad, and they just tacked the replacements right onto the old terminals and didn't bother to remove the existing one at all. And this is how it originally looked. In fact, this looks really, really pristine. I don't see any evidence of any repairs whatsoever. All the dog bones are nice and clean and pretty looking. There's only a handful of paper caps. What, 1, 2, 3, 4 I think is it. The rest are all inside the Bakelite blocks. So yeah, I'm quite happy. This was definitely worth the money I paid on it. Which wasn't all that much. It was like $65 or so, in case anybody's interested. This is curious too. They must have replaced the control on this set, and in fact the shaft wasn't quite right for the knob, so they globbed some solder on here and filed it down. Whereas over here, this must be the power tone control, just like on the Philco 60 I restored, where there's a metal box, and inside of that are 1 or 2 capacitors. So this turns the radio on, and there's several tone positions. This is the band switch, and this is volume. Oh, that's power and volume. But you know what? I think this is a replacement too. So maybe there was one repair. Hard to say. But this control seems a bit newer than the others, and the shaft isn't quite right. See, a distinctive thing about these Philco knobs is that they're not half moon, whereas this is a full half moon shaft, where half the shaft is gone. A real Philco shaft is more like only 10 or 15% of the shaft is shaved off, and that's why when you try to put these knobs on it just falls off. That's why that guy on this set globbed solder on there to make up the void. So I guess one control has been replaced. Oh well. I'll have to do something about that. But, there we go. So that's how they're supposed to go on. Alright, so I don't know when I'll get to it, but I'm really psyched about working on this now. I've never restored a battery set other than a little D-Troll p1o set I did a video on a while ago, which is just like a one-night project, really simple. This is definitely going to be more complicated. But so happy to have all the original parts finally. I guess there's one final part to this video. I might as well test the tubes, see if they're any good. I found quite an assortment of tubes in the radio. Got a few tongue soles, a few National Union, an RCA, Sylvania, and only one Philco, and that was the ballast tube. I've got the Type 19 in the tube tester right now. Remember, if you ever work on battery operated sets, all the tubes are on very low voltages, in this case 2 volts, not the more common 6.3 or 12.6. Another thing about these battery operated tubes is they heat up really fast. So right now this tube is off, and all I have to do is flip down the 6th lever to power it up, and it's already registering. There's 2 halves of this tube. It's kind of interesting the way they used it. It's like an early push-pull mode, but all in a single tube. Yeah, both halves are good. Here's the schematic for it. So, just a single Type 30 driver into an audio transformer that's center tapped, and that splits the phase and powers this dual triode Type 19 output tube that goes to the output transformer and then powers the permanent magnet speaker. Here's the Type 32 tube, and again, just to show you how fast these tubes warm up, put it in the socket right now, and it's already warmed up. And good, better yet. I'm just about done testing all the tubes, and they all tested at least 75 on my meter, so they're all quite good. That just leaves this Type 1C6, and here we go. Alright, so I have a full complement of good tubes. Again, here's the schematic, and here are the battery connections, so somewhat complicated. There's the A battery, which is the 2 volts for the filament. There's the B, which is a bias. I'm not sure exactly what the voltage should be. Then there's the C battery, which I think is 135. But you see there's other various voltages mentioned on here. I think there are taps. Like I think there's a tap on the 135 to give you the 67.5. And I imagine there are taps on the B battery to give you minus 7.5 and minus 3. Again, I'll consult battery maker to see what's what with all this stuff. And here's that optional ballast tube. So I'd kind of forgotten about this radio, but now that I've got what appears to be a very intact chassis, I'm kind of interested in it again. It's definitely different than anything else I've worked on. So I can't make any promises. I do have a number of projects ongoing right now, but I will get to it as soon as I can. I hope you enjoyed this video.